him in the literacy stake, but he's gone from literacy forever.
Mr. Speaker.
Jan Logie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak today about New Zealand's profoundly disturbing levels of domestic violence, sexual violence and child abuse, all of which are a symptom of a very deep societal problem in this country. Violence against women and children is at a crisis level in this country at the moment. Deaths from domestic violence have increased by more than 50% since 2008. 1 in 3 women are likely to experience domestic violence in their lifetime, and right now, well over 15% of women in this country are in a violent relationship. Police and Women's Refuge are responding to domestic violence call-outs every 6 minutes in this country. Up to 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 7 boys, possibly 1 in 3 people with disabilities are likely to experience sexual abuse in their lifetime. We need to stop covering up, get to work and start cleaning this up. This has been a problem that has never been properly addressed in this country. Sexual abuse support services in particular have never been adequately funded. So what is this government doing to improve this situation? Well, in Auckland today we saw a flash mob out to demand funding for the Auckland Sexual Abuse Helpline that's lost over $100,000 in funding and is likely to lose Auckland's only 24-hour helpline. This government has cut funding to sexual abuse support services, resulting in a third having to reduce staff and services. This government has more than halved the money going to ACC through specialist claims. This government has reduced the number of counsellors prepared to work for ACC by around half. This government has produced a white paper on vulnerable children that does not once mention domestic violence or sexual abuse. This government has shelved the Law Commission work on alternative pre-trial and trial processes that offer the only hope of increasing the conviction rate from 1% for sexual abuse in this country. This government, instead of delivering on the promised 18 specialist court advisors, have only delivered on 10, and not even one of these court advisors is based in the South Island. This government has changed the Solicitor General's guidelines for prosecution, which has increased the threshold for evidence for crimes to be prosecuted, which means that in cases where it's a he says, she says, typically domestic violence and sexual abuse cases, the prosecutor is less likely to go forward with the case. This government has reduced funding to women's refuges. They've reduced access to legal aid. They're now changing the family court processes that will severely disadvantage women in undisclosed violent relationships, which are many. This government is currently looking at altering the child support formula to make it easier for ex-partners not to pay child support and reduce how much they need to pay. This government has increased work testing for the DPP and refused to inform women of the exemption for women leaving violent relationships available to them. This government has allowed the Family Violence Task Force...
I hesitate to interrupt the member, but because I wanted to hear, member may resume a seat for a moment, how technical this speech got, because it's clearly being read. We've made it very clear in the past that we don't read 5-minute speeches unless they're particularly technical. Just criticising another political party is hardly technical. And so I'd ask the member, please, to, by all means, use the speech notes to refer to, but please don't just read a speech to this House criticising another political party in the House. That's not in the spirit of the general debate. Jan Logie, I apologise.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Actually, each one of those points that I'm reading is a distinct point of what this government's done, and unless I'm reading them, I may
miss one. The member will now
one.
resume his seat. She will not argue with me. The Speaker is the sole adjudicator on these matters where the members can read speeches. And forgive me, but just criticising another party is not the kind of technical thing envisaged when members should be able to read a speech. And I'd ask, she's most welcome to refer to notes, but just standing there reading a speech will send all members to sleep. Jan Logie.
Well, I'm sorry if it offends the Speaker that the amount of harm this government is doing requires reading through a list because the list is so long. I'll continue not reading. in some of the things that this government has done, that they have allowed the Family Violence Task Force not to report for over a year. They have taken effect to turn the unit within MSD into a secretariat. The research that was delivered by that unit has not released any of its research or one piece of research over the last year, and that they have refused to release information under OIA. This government has changed the criteria for Housing New Zealand. That means victims of domestic violence are no longer able to access Housing New Zealand housing. They've changed their policy. That means that when ex-partners are damaging the houses of the women who have tenure, those women are held accountable for the cost to that damage done. This government has introduced the Crimes Amendment Act, which in effect is punishing women for not being able to protect their children against the violence of their partner. This government is deeply patriarchal and has been attacking and rescinding women's rights ad nauseum. I believe that the sexual abuse can destroy lives and everyone needs the right help, and it's government's job to ensure that is possible, and they are not delivering.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I confess to feeling a bit like at a mosquito